Being Your Best You with Dr. Kyre.
I'm exceptional, thank you. How are you today?
I'm so good.
Blocks to bold, brass to gold, better to best. We all get caught in mental mazes, believing that we have to live the way others see us, or being taught to think things through. Dr. Kyre is an agent of change using Geotran human programming and activations to quickly and easily release people from the automatic patterns and inner glitches that block their healthy, wealthy, happy life. Instead of going where our innate circuitry takes us. Being in alignment with you is the best way to create your best life. Are you ready to be your best self? Being Your Best You with Dr. Kyre. Welcome to the show.
Hello, here we are again. This is Dr. Kyre speaking, and as you can see from my background, I am in France. Hooray! Always a good thing. So, today we will be talking with Brettany Sorokowsky, and I hope I have pronounced that correctly. I'm very particular about names myself. Now, Brettany is a coach, an entrepreneur, a mentor. She works with business owners and mentors who are a little overwhelmed by the kind of hustle culture that we're all enjoying so much at the moment. And like most of us, she is attempting to show people how to work more intelligently rather than harder. Yes, we're all a bit exhausted these days. In the entrepreneurial culture, there is this sort of emphasis, obviously, on working, and being consistent, which is great, but also can be very tiring, especially for those of us who are not quite technically minded. So I'm so happy that Brettany's able to be with us here today, and I'm sure she's going to come on any second now. Look, and there she is. Hooray!
Hey, Brittany,
how are you?
Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, no, it's really great you could make it. Why don't you pronounce your name for us just to make sure that I didn't screw it up?
So my first name is Brettany Sorokowsky.
Yeah, not that one. Say again?
Sorokowsky.
Sorokowsky. Okay, I was close. And of course, as you know, I am Kyre. And in fact, on my Zoom calls, I actually have it on the bottom of the screen. This is pronounced Kyre, K-E-E-R. Rhymes with near, clear, sear, dear, or if you're a guy with beer. And then people will remember that. So what got you here? What did you start with? I mean, I started out as an architect, for heaven's sake. You know, and here I am fixing people's inner biocomputers. So, like, where did you start and how did you get here? Tell us all.
So I opened my first business when I was 12 years old. So I had to figure out a way to pay for my sports, and my parents weren't going to pay for my sports. And so I had to figure out a way to pay for my sports. And so I started a t-shirt business when I was 12 years old. And
wow.
The t-shirts were a big red no sign with the word whining in the middle. And I sold those t-shirts to everybody I could think of. And and then from there, I actually started flipping real estate because I realized in Canada I didn't have to pay capital gains under the age of 18. So then I started to flip real estate, and I just decided that I just love living life on my own terms. But then my first tidal wave came. I'm going to call them tidal waves. So when I was 20, my long-term boyfriend committed suicide. And that changed my whole trajectory of my life because I had to go to healing. And in that, I ended up adopting a severely disabled man. And so my whole life structured around creating a lifestyle that I would be able to work from home, that I would be able to have flexible hours, that I would be able to, if he didn't sleep at night, I could sleep in the morning kind of thing. And so that's what took the majority of my energy. And then from there, I went on to be a COO, and I lived life off of everybody else's terms. I did everything based off of what should be done. I worked really, really hard, made multiple millions of dollars, bought the big houses, drove the fancy cars, did all those things for almost 15 years. And then after 15 years, I realized that I wasn't living authentically. And so I started my healing journey in 2020. And out of that journey has birthed the hardest season of my life. So I feel like when people start healing, I feel like it should come with a warning label of like, hey, heads up. But so it really took a whole, that's where it really started, is in 2020, I started to figure out what was me, what wasn't me, what had been imparted on me. And then in 2022, I gave birth to our third child, and he passed away 5 weeks after he was born. And so the transition that I've gone through, I'm so grateful that I started healing before I had to go through losing a child. But also in losing a child, it really brought forward how much clutter I had in my life that wasn't actually based off of what I wanted. It was based off of all these things. And so since losing Bo, I have completely transformed my world again, and am still on the journey, in full transparency, to find what is authentically me, that allows me to raise my children, that allows me to be a wife, that allows me to be a homesteader because I love growing my own vegetables and my own animals. And so it's really been a journey, and it's one that's really brought forward the fact that I want others to realize that the life that they're intended to have too isn't working 80 hours a week. Like, we're not designed to do that.
We're not. We are
No,
absolutely
it's not in our makeup.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
even those of us who are generators in human design with the big batteries, it's like, no.
right? Like, we have to actually fill our souls. And so that's one thing that I feel is one of Bo's greatest gifts that he gave me, is he really brought highlight to what matters and what I want my life to be about, and how to help others achieve that for themselves. And so that's the journey I'm on right now, is how to help people really allow those inner lights that they each have to shine, so that they can serve the world in their authentic way with their unique gifts, talents, strengths, and experiences.
Yeah, that is a very, very worthy goal. That's really excellent. And isn't it so interesting how we come to whatever place we're at as mentors, as in my case, primarily Geotran, programming, but the way that we help people is always so closely aligned to what we've gone through ourselves. My teacher, Dorothy Espio, used to say, yeah, as you heal from your particular issues, your particular traumas, you become the homeopathic for other people in a similar place. So it's like you're a couple of steps further down the road than they are. So you know a bit more. You may have some great tools, but mainly it's the fact that you're still within arm's reach. Mm-hmm. So you can accompany them rather than leading, per se. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that so often people we have this perfectionism syndrome around us. And I'm like, that's BS. Like, we don't have to be perfect. We have to have stumbled, and we've had to have fallen. And then I'm going to look back and look at I visually look at it as like landmines in the ground, and there's people standing on the other side of the landmines. And I'm like, go to the right, so you don't hit that landmine. That's what my job is. Now, if they choose not to listen, they're going to hit a landmine, but that's also their lesson to learn and their journey. And really having space for people to be able to be themselves and to learn the lessons that are intended for them to learn takes a huge amount of grace and wisdom that I don't see a lot of coaches, mentors, people having currently.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree with you. Yes. And this whole issue of learning one's own lessons, and it's going to sound like a bit of a jump in subject, but really it's not. About 80% of what I clear from people is actually other people's beliefs or thoughts, feelings, beliefs, desires. They're running money the way their father did. They're running relationships the way their mother did. They're running, And so for me, at any rate, the core thing is to get people back into being who they actually are designed to be, and the choices that go along with that, rather than running default strategies from what they've been taught, what they've been learning, what they've been exposed to. A lot of it's just exposure, especially before the age of 10, because it all goes into the subconscious. It's all still in there somewhere. So
100%.
Go on, please.
Oh, so my brain goes, I think of a slingshot as you're talking, or like a spider web. And so often we're a part of a spider web that we don't even realize we're participating in. And we have to be able to acknowledge that we can't read the bottle we can't read the label from inside the bottle. But we also have to lean on like all of the fact that your expertise is a gift to be able to give somebody like me. Like I needed to utilize somebody with your skill set in order for me to start my healing journey. And even throughout my journey, I've had to utilize a whole bunch of other humans because I'm not good at that stuff. That's not where my gifts, talents, or strengths are.
And, I have certain gifts of my own. There are some things that I say completely openly I'm a freaking genius at, but there are some that I do not have. And most of them have to do with running a business. I'm just like, I don't even know where to start. But damn, give me a person and a look at their inner computers, and I am just all over that. Yeah.
But it takes both humans. Like for me, I look at businesses and I view them as pieces of art. And so when I look at a business, I look at like a canvas, and it's a privilege to be an artist of a canvas. But those canvases have to have some key elements. Like you have to have your landscape line. You have to have your black and whites. You have to have all of these things. And so that's how I view business, is we're painting a canvas, and there's a few things that are just must-haves inside of that canvas, but you can still go wild. Like my canvas isn't going to look like your canvas because there's a few structural things that are the same.
But let's face it, the jewelry's different. What are you going to do?
Right? I love it. And so that's where I feel like so many times people get caught in the shoulds. I always say stop shooting on yourself. Like,
definitely.
The land of shoulds, titles, masks that were assigned to them. My favorite question I ask myself every morning is, who am I if I stripped all the titles that anybody else has ever assigned to me?
Ooh, that's a wonderful question. I love that question.
It's my favorite.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And a lot of this is about the art of the question, or at least that's what I experience in my world. So because your computers, they want to answer the question. They will answer any question automatically. They may not answer it the way you want to hear it from your conscious mind. But if you can find the right question, sometimes the best question is, what's the right question right now? Yeah. And then in my world, at any rate, we use a lot of muscle testing to get yes, no answers to those questions. And that gets to transcend and include all of that rationality that, socially speaking, culturally speaking, we have been very much trained to see as like the only way of processing. But you know better than most that it just doesn't work for some stuff. It just doesn't.
And I also, like, for me, if I was to think about what I would go back and tell myself 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, is the pain is going to be worth it. Like, it is going to be uncomfortable. You are going to strip away titles. You are going to feel raw. Those are all things that are going to happen. But they're 100% worth it. Because without doing the stripping, you're going to pull those things forward forever. And everything will be painful.
Yes. See, this is when I'm working with people, we have so much of the time we're looking at something that happened in the past, maybe didn't even happen to them, happened to someone around them, but the impact was so strong that they picked it up. So it's like they're listening to a certain radio station, and even though they have it down low, something big is happening on that radio station, and they pick it up and they think that it's about them, and they think that it's part of normality. Yeah. So a lot of the time when I'm saying to someone, what percent are you right now? And let's say it's 60%, which is not atypical. Okay, how many people, places, or things do you have on you? Let's make a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll just identify each one and throw them out. Wah! Huh? So that they don't have to carry that anymore.
Right?
And if we can interject a little humor into the whole process, so much the better.
Oh, it's so much better. And like, my techniques that I use is actually a hot air balloon. So I fill up that hot air balloon with all the garbage of the day, like just throw it all in there, surrender it all, let it float away. And then I ask God to send back what I need. Because I'm not here for all the garbage. Like, that's not what I was created for. I wasn't created for drama. I wasn't created for clutter. I wasn't created for yuckiness. But if I hold on to it, it will always stay. So I have to let it go. And sometimes that also means letting go of relationships. That means letting go of what would be my desired outcome. All of that I have to actually release and surrender. And if I'm not willing to do that, then I'm not in a place where I can grow in that capacity currently. And when I realized that surrender and growth are sisters, that was huge for me to be able to understand that that's my job, is to work on the ability to surrender so that I could grow.
Yes. To me, this connects up with what I keep saying, which is, yes, you need to be 100% you, but you also need to be in the now. So all of that past stuff that may or may not have served you then, also it's probably not appropriate for you now. Yeah? Because we are constantly, changing. And it's only in the now that firstly, we have the ability to choose. So the only place we can make choices and take action. And also it's actually the only time frame where we can listen to spirit. If we're constantly reviewing something in the past that upset us, if we're living in the past or worried about the future, as you know, worry means you're praying for something you don't want. And that's always taking us into the future, which may never happen. So what a waste of energy.
Well, I tell my children all the time, the future doesn't exist and the past doesn't exist, so you better learn to focus on the present.
Yeah. Good. Like, hey, I wish I had learned that when I was your kid's age. That would have been terrific.
Right? It's really that simple. And it's so interesting. I was listening to our neighbor and talking about the weather and this and that. And I'm like, you're worried about something you have zero control over. So that means you just if you have 100 units of energy, you just assigned 10 units and wasted 10 units of energy on something that is irrelevant. It's out of your control. Like, why not save those 10 units of energy and go play with your kids? Make a memory. Because I have, after losing Bo, going to sleep is a guarantee. Waking up is a miracle.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm like, if we're not taking advantage of these moments, then what why are we worried about the weather? The weather's going to do what the weather's going to do, man. Like, but your children are only going to be 2 and 4 for so long. Like, those are the moments and things that actually matter. And so I think for me, that's when I realized, like, we really actually need to start talking about the things that matter. We need to let go of the things that maybe society places value on, but they don't actually hold tangible value in our being or in our soul. And that's a lot of what's occupying our energy, is things that don't actually connect to our soul. And so that's why I love what you do, is release all of that stuff, because that's just draining.
Yeah. You know, just recently, you know, my friend in Illinois had to have his first colonoscopy. And I swear he spent a week fretting about it. I mean, to the point where normally we would have dinner together every night. You know, the night before I had dinner, and I said, I'm going home, because this atmosphere of anxiety and worry is just really annoying me, you know? So he came in and had dinner afterwards, or maybe it was the next day, and something had to be sent off to be examined or assessed. And he actually apologized, which is very rare, and said, I'm sorry I was cranky. I'm just worried about this thing. I said to him afterwards, you know what? Actually, there was no negative result. And you spent a week doing exactly what you were just saying, Brettany, expending that energy on the nervousness that you were going to have major surgery or something. It's like, no. I mean, how did that help anything whatsoever? And yet, in fact, many of us do this, hopefully on a smaller level, a lot of the time.
But isn't it the smaller level that affects more things? Like, I used to be that human that like meal prepped all the way out, like all month. I would have my meal plans all done, and I would have everything all done all the time. And then I realized, I was like, not that I need to live only in the here and now, but why am I wasting so much of my quality hour of my day, my thinking time, on planning stuff that I'm going to change anyway, because guaranteed we're going to end up going to a baseball game. We're going to do this. The kids want to have a barbecue instead. Like, I was like, this is dumb. Like, it's unnecessary. I'm taking all of this energy and I'm spending it on stuff that isn't going to make my children's childhood better. They're not going to be like, my mom used to meal plan 30 days out and it made us have the best meals ever. Like, that's not what they're going to talk about. They're going to talk about mom was preoccupied and didn't come outside or do crafts with us.
Yeah. That's so interesting, because I'm a great believer in change, but I'm actually not very good at it. I actually really hate it when my plans get disrupted by somebody else. I mean, I can change plans if I have to, and if it's my choice. But I really, really, really hate it when somebody else comes in and changes it all around without consulting.
Super interesting.
Yeah. And yet change and transformation is what my work is all about. So just think of how much worse I would have been 30 years ago.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's probably why you're a career choice. It does align with your career choice.
Yeah.
But isn't that the truth though? Guarantees, like, there's a couple guarantees in life. Everything's going to change and you're going to die. Those are the, like, guaranteed going to happen. And we fight those two things tooth and nail, but they're the only two things that are guaranteed.
So they're constants in that respect.
Yeah. And I'm like, why are we fighting what is, like, we're better off releasing that and embracing the fact that those are the constant. Everything else is the variable.
Yeah. You're going to expect us to be rational sometime soon. Do you see the question on the...
oh, yeah. How did Brettany heal from the grief? Well, I'm not healed. So I'll be fully transparent on that one. So I view grief as a journey. So I love nature and I love trees. And so I once saw this beautiful visual that after a tree survives a fire, it just has a dark ring around it and then it continues to grow. But that ring never leaves the tree from where that trauma happened or the grief happened.
That's right.
And so I view that my life is in a period of transition of healing that burned ring around my tree. But I also think that there's an element of the fact that that's now a part of me, and I'm going to pay homage to the fact that that is a part of me, and I'm not going to try to eliminate it. I'm not going to try and hide from it. I'm not going to run away from it. It is a part of me. And I get to choose what I'm going to do with it. And so I actually feel like grief is something that you have a choice over. And our counselor told us that after you lose a child, it's a life sentence. No matter how you cut the cookie, it is a life sentence. And so you get to decide if you died when your child died, or if you will honor their life through your life.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying that to me, and I was like, oh my goodness, talk about unbelievable reality check of it is a life sentence, but I get to choose my life sentence. And that's why I love talking about Bo. I love saying his name. All of that to me is a beautiful gift that he gave us. And my children joke that he's the Bo to our present. So it's been really a beautiful thing to be able to grow through, but it's not something I think I will ever actually heal from.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. One of the things that I really notice in my work is we have one of the big 4 integrations that we start with in Geotran. One of them is called the living integration, and that's the one we use most commonly, right? And the living integration, if that's what checks for somebody, it's because some part of them has died or is moribund. And we want to bring it back to life. We want it to be fully functional. We want someone to be able to have the choice to really live while they're alive, you know? And I imagine, I don't know, you tell me, that this is part of what you're saying to your clients when you're helping them get away from the deadening effects of, for example, working in a corporate environment, of basically feeling they have to work themselves to death on a daily basis.
And I think for right now, people feel like they have to, their worth is in their work. And that's one of the myths I work so hard to blow up, because I am like, that your worth is set and everything else is just an experience. That is fact. And so really helping them cut the cord on the fact that like their worth is not in their work. It's not in their to-do list. It's actually one of the first foundational things that we have to detach from is, if you literally believe that if I work hard enough, I will be successful, that's simply not true. And we got to blow up that myth.
I mean, if it were, all of the women all around the world, especially in third world countries, would be a lot more highly valued because they're the ones who are putting in the work.
Well, and even look at how like a company is set up, or look at McDonald's even. The owner of the McDonald's works far less than the person making the French fries.
Exactly.
Like that logic doesn't prove true. And so it's really interesting that is the logic that people assign to business. They actually assign it to their whole lives. And I'm like, it's not true. Like your logic literally is flawed. So, but lots of times people are so attached to that lie that it does take a moment for them to detach from that lie.
Yeah. And at least in my experience, part of it is also that people are, due to one thing and another, due to exposure, due to training, due to habits, due to faulty belief systems, due to social pressure. Yeah, they are simply not realizing the range of choices that are available to them.
Oh, yeah.
This is the way, my parents worked, or this is the way my grandparents worked, and therefore that is the only right way to work or to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you in
Whereas
homeschool class this morning?
I'm sorry?
We were in homeschool this morning. We were talking about you can pick a destination, but you can have multiple paths to the same destination. Because,
exactly.
right? Like you can get to Paris, like you can go to France, you can take a train from England to France, you can take an airplane, you can drive to Paris. Like all of these things are options, but like just because I live in Canada, I'm like, well, you have to take an airplane. Well, if I was in England, you could take the tube. Like
That's right.
there's lots of different ways. There's no right or wrong. What works.
Yes, it's what works, indeed. And I think it's very stimulating and worthwhile that people like you and me, in a sometimes sneaky and sometimes really overt way, we are saying to people around us, look, I understand that we are surrounded by a society and a culture, but guess what? You can actually do things differently.
Yes.
I mean, this is why my nonprofit is called the Teal Sheep Foundation, because I grew up in the kind of family where they have absolutely no idea of who I am and what I can do. I mean, none. I'm not the black sheep, despite my beautiful shirt, because they know it's not criminal. Yes, I'm not the black sheep. I'm the teal sheep.
I love
it. And I collect teal sheep, or sheep of whatever colors you like, around me, because that's where I'm resonating. I'm saying that conventional, and in fact, my teacher even said to me once, she said, look here, if you had got married in your 20s and had a couple of kids, which is what my mother did. My mother's 26 when I was born. You would not be doing this work now. It's actually valuable, the work that I do. And I can bring people back to life. And I get the sense that that's part of what you're doing too, maybe more in a business context than mine.
Well, I think they align though. Like I view them as train tracks. Like if people are going to be living their life includes multiple different facets. Like it's not singular. Like there's elements of life that's hobbies, there's all of that. And so you have to be able to be your whole human to be able to be on those tracks.
Yes.
Right? It's simple. And so I want healthy humans who are having influence in business. And that's my real root mission. And I think because I feel like there's a lot of broken humans that are influencing and creating more brokenness. And so we do need to take those moments to be able to acknowledge healthy humans and to allow people to see this is how a healthy human would operate. This is how an unhealthy human would operate. That means though, having conversations like this that everybody may not be comfortable with, because we're saying pull back the masks, pull back the sheets, and actually be raw and real. And that's uncomfortable for some people.
Yes. And one of the things that I don't know if I do it perfectly all the time, but certainly that I attempt to do with my clients. One of my high values is that people are not broken. They're dented. They may be suffering from computer viruses. They have been exposed to some non-human energies. And, I mean non-human in the sense of other people not living up to their own potential. I'm not talking about non-human in an alien sense. I'm not talking about reptiles. I'm just saying, just not fully human, not fully embodying who they're here to be. And yet, I do have this optimistic belief that the foundation is not broken. that
Yes.
that I'm perhaps I'm just seeing it in terms of potential, that everybody has the potential to be fully
Well,
expressive.
and what if it was considered the fact that the brokenness is part of the journey? Like that's, and not broken as in, I mean, would be the appropriate word. The experiences that led you to where you are today, you wouldn't have landed here today if you hadn't
Here.
have had those experiences. So they served a purpose. And they need to be respected, but then when those systems no longer serve you, they need to be released.
Yes.
Right, but it's more of to me it's very honoring that this is what brought you to where you are today. So then next would be acknowledgement, gratitude, and release.
Yeah. Yeah. That release part is very important, I think.
It's hard too.
Well, that's why I try and make it fun.
Yes.
That's when we throw people out and go, wow, it's fun, because a certain lightness of touch is actually really beneficial. We do take ourselves terribly seriously,
Well, and it was so funny. So my son asked me the other day, who's the most joy-filled person that he knows? And I was like, interesting question, great question. And I said, well, who would you say is the most joy-filled person? And he goes, oh, you. And I'm like, oh, mommy feels like I'm very sad right now. And he goes, nobody else looks at the clouds like you do.
And that's why we need that outside eye.
Right? I was just like, my 6-year-old put me in my place.
That is just wonderful.
But sometimes we need humor. We need childlike.
I'm sorry, say again.
So sometimes we need humor. We need childlike. We need it not to be so serious. And I loved your approach when you and I met the other day. I was like, man, this lady is magical in her lightness and in your ability to make people feel safe, that it's a safe place to have humor. Because now that's like a sacred space. Humor is sacred. And you did a beautiful job of just bringing humor and lightness to a space.
And my teacher, Dorothy Espio, always said that the things that make us human are that our hues are switched on, colors. Yeah, very often, especially when things are very polarized politically, for instance, we see things very much in black and white, or possibly in gray. Then we describe, there's a little bit of color. We say we're blue when we're depressed, or green with envy, or red with rage, or yellow when we're feeling bilious, which is not a word people use much these days. But we have thousands and thousands of hues available to us, just thousands. And the image she always gave was one of those cut glass crystals, the kind of thing I mean, like a little glass globe, but faceted. Yes. And then, the light of God comes in, and if those facets are cleaned up and clean and sparkling, then you're going to get this rainbow hues across the room. Yeah? So that's when we use the living integration, is when one or more of those facets is dead or occluded or just muddy. Yeah. It's like, okay, let's bring that back to life so that light can come in and be refracted. So hues, and then there's humor, which kind of my specialty. And then there's humility in the sense of being teachable, in the original Greek sense, yes, of meekness, referring to a horse that is trainable, that is willing to listen to you and work with you, rather than headstrong. Yeah. So those are there's our trinity of hues, as it were, that makes us fully human. And when we don't have those, and again, we can see this in a political context, for instance. I mean, be very careful of politicians who take themselves too seriously, who just get very upset when anybody makes a joke. You know, it's like, come on, just get off your high horse there for a minute.
I think that applies to anybody in leadership. If you're looking for a mentor, you're looking for a coach, or you're looking for somebody. If I loved your definition of humility, because I believe that that's something that's so lost. But also, when you can actually use humor, somebody can make light of themselves. They can acknowledge that, like, hey, I'm perfectly imperfect. Those are the people that actually have real leadership skills. Like, those are the people that actually have the ability to make lasting change. And I think that might be just a good measuring stick that sometimes people need to be aware of, is how do I actually know who is a good political leader, who is a good coach, who is a good mentor, who we ask ourselves these questions all the time, but we don't really have measuring sticks to know, right? And so I think that's a great measuring stick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also teach people to do muscle testing so that they can always be checking, is this person, is this situation, is this belief, is this whatever, this choice, is this obedient for me? Is this in alignment with my divine blueprint? But you know, it's a really good example of exactly this humor. I have been watching a cellist, a Swiss cellist, and his name is Jodok Vuile. So that's Jodok, and he's on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram as Jodok Cello. And what I find so fascinating about him, he mainly plays outdoors. So we see these wonderful landscapes, a lot of them in Switzerland, up in the mountains. And he plays, he's an extraordinary musician, extraordinary. But what really takes it up a level is he's so good-humored about it. He's smiling, he's engaging, he's taking pop tunes, and, you know, adapting them for the cello, for heaven's sake. And I used to play cello myself, so I mean, has particular resonance for me. But it's more that he's got that twinkle, you know, he's got that. And I'm thinking, now, if that were a politician, then that's somebody I'd be really interested in.
But I think but he's figured out his magic. He's figured out his
yes, and
that's
this music is flowing out of him like a divine. I don't even know the word. It's being that conduit.
Yeah. And being open to being that conduit. Like that's the other thing, is I know how many people. I don't know if it's just a space I've been in recently, but like I've hired mindset coaches, and I'm like, oh, why are we in this land of hiring mindset coaches? And I have to keep, it's something I struggle with, because so often I feel like these mindset coaches, they're not living life in full color. They're still living in the black and white, the dualities. And I'm like, that's not what life's about, man. Life's got a lot more color to it. It has a lot more hues. It has a lot more flow throughs. Like, life is a very fluid thing. Like, it's not something that is concrete.
No. And indeed, if what that took me to is the picture of, you know, having your feet set in concrete, and it's like,
right?
You know, if you're not careful, someone's going to throw you in the river, and then you are definitely SOL.
But that's what we do to ourselves. We put ourselves in these roles. We put ourselves in the role of mom. We put ourselves in the role of broken. We put ourselves in the role of wife. We put ourselves in the role of business owner. We put all of these roles are concrete bricks we've strapped to our feet. And I'm like, just take off the bricks, man. You'll feel so much better.
Yeah. And you know, there are certain things that Geotran won't work on. Yeah. And they're non-physical things.
I know that.
Envy, coveting, craving, jealousy, Pharisee, hatred, victim, greed, grudges. I can't. I won't. Worry, judgment, unforgiveness, blame.
Wow.
It won't work on them because they're messing with your operating system. They're not even just messing with your programs, your wiring, but your entire operating system. As humans, I have been taught, and I truly believe, as humans, our operating system is faith. And when that fails you, patience is the backup. And the kind of level that we're working on, we also add in grace and obedience, meaning obedience to your divine blueprint.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're surrounded by, I'm going to use terms that some people may not get. It's okay. The God of this world, the energy of this world, the operating system is fear, and the backup is doubt. So these wonderful viewers, if you're getting pulled into somebody's dogma, cause, or agenda that's based on fear and doubt, stop it. Because it's going to mess with your computers. You cannot have faith and fear at the same place at the same time. You cannot have patience and doubt in the same place at the same time. It just doesn't work. They are opposites.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my soapbox for tonight. Please carry on.
My brain, I always tell my children, worry and worship can't exist together.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Like those two things, if you're looking at being excited and filled and alive, that cannot coexist with worry.
No.
Like those two are not friends. They're oil and water. Yeah. And so I feel like so often we need to actually acknowledge that that's what's happening. And I listened to the things you just listed off, like that it won't work on. And those are such low vibration words you just use.
Exactly.
Like how is anything supposed to grow in something that's so low vibration? Like it won't.
I just can't argue with you about that.
Okay, so then my question for you is, if somebody finds themselves in this low vibration, what can they do to change it? Do they have to work with somebody like you? Do they, is there something they can do at home? Like what is somebody supposed to do when they just heard you and acknowledge that they're living in the fear space?
Well, there are a couple of things. One, we teach something called positive points, which de-stresses any situation, any emotion, any whatever, And that's right hand clockwise to the outside of the left leg, 2, 3, 5 through 6, 5. So it takes you like 2 seconds. And if you happen to be on the bus and you don't feel like doing that in public, you can even just do it with your intention if it's once it's in your field. So that's one thing, to actually de-stress you and bring you back into being who you are in the now. Because all of these conditions are really taking you out of the now. They're taking you out of balance with yourself. So there is a very quick way of getting back into the now, which I'm going to demonstrate for you right now. Thank you so much for that question. Okay, so you take the flats of your fingers and you put them on the middle of your head, kind of where the baby soft spot was, or if you have a central part. Yeah, so it's the flat of the fingers, that's right. And we're just going to leave it there for about 12 seconds. This is part of the mind gems, which is 12 little exercises to check your wiring. This brings you back into the present time. And then when you feel the shift, or after 12 seconds, whichever comes first, you put the other hand up there.
Oh.
This is fantastic if you're just about to get into an argument with someone. Have you ever noticed this? That arguments tend to be, you have done this 18 times to me already, and I anticipate you're going to do it for another 18 times in the future. But in the now, it's really not that drastic. Whoa. Mm-hmm. Right? So really the question is not so much if somebody is in a low vibration, can we do anything about it? Because of course we can. It's, do they have a habit of it? Do they have an addiction to it? Is it part of their center of gravity? Because we all flip into stuff. The trick is to flip out of it again. as quickly as
Yeah.
we can manage. Yeah. And that's a question of observation. But if it's something to which you are addicted or allergic means automatically reactive, then you may need to have an allergy clearing or go back and find out, we go back together and find out, oh, something happened when you were 4 years old and it was about your mother or your father or somebody, but not you is the point. And you picked it up from there, but because you were so young, it feels like just normal. It's normality for you. What doesn't everybody respond this way? Actually, no. Not everyone responds that way. So it, like so many things in this realm, it really depends on the person and where they picked it up from and what they're still being exposed to and what their choices are around that. Where I can help, and I imagine you do too, is pointing out what's going on and then bringing in our tools and saying, okay, are we in agreement that this is what seems to be happening? Great. Let's go find the cause. Let's go back and fix that. If we take out the root, the leaves and flowers will take care of themselves with a little modest attention. But we don't want to do. Now, I think therapists are great. I know they sometimes do fabulous work, and that's great. But a lot of therapists, there are two fallacies in the therapeutic approach from my perspective only, and I could be wrong. One is therapists tend to believe that anything you're talking about or that's affecting you is about you. Whereas I find about 80% of the time it's about not you. So you've been exposed to something. And therapists, God bless them, have a tendency to say, oh, okay, well, let's track this pattern. So, and what you focus on is what you get more of. So let's have some more of that. Mm-hmm. Whereas my approach is to look at it as lightly as we can, just enough to identify it. We bring in the tools, we clear it, and it's a permanent clearing. Unless, of course, you choose to put yourself back into that situation. Mm-hmm. So you have to then be responsible for staying you and staying in the now. And because these things become habits, it's good to bring in a new habit that's going to be more beneficial to press the old one out. Yeah.
Well, it's just like planting, right? If you pull a weed, you're less likely to get weeds back if you put a plant in there.
Right. If you just leave the ground sort of sitting there, then something's going to grow.
Right?
Yeah. It may not be your first choice for what's going to grow. Yeah.
That's
I think of it as dandelions. Yeah.
Well, because I think often. I think people often don't know what to do, who to go to, or they just know something's off and what they have been doing isn't working.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. Yeah. And that's what's so interesting in the coaching container online is that my coaches, people I go to for coaching, will say things like, oh, well, you have to keep touching their pain points. Oh, well, you got to offer them a tangible result. And I'm sitting here going, no, you don't understand what I do and how I work. Because most people, because I'm working the subconscious, they don't even know what's wrong with them. They just know they're off. What you just said, they're off. And furthermore, what the benefits that I bring are not normally tangible. I mean, yes, It's fantastic that the last masterclass that I did, one of the people came back to me and said he only came to 1 out of the 3 sessions and he still had 4 new clients within 48 hours.
Wow.
And I was working on prosperity, so yay! Yeah. But I got to tell you, it's relatively rare to have something that clear cut. But on the other hand, people find out who they are. They find out what they want. They realize they can have lots more choices, and they start making them. Mm-hmm. So in the intangible realm, man, both of us, we're just doing great work. Yay, us.
Well, and I agree with you because I feel like right now the space is occupied with these tangible absolutes. And
Yes.
I am like, that's not actually what people need. Like, that's what people are looking for is actually connection. They're looking for clarity. They're looking for value. And
Yes.
instead, we're filling them up with all this fluff that just makes them feel like more failures because they didn't get your picture perfect, tangible result. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so then we're just perpetuating a problem versus helping a problem. And how is that of any benefit?
And this is one of the reasons why I am a great believer in underachievement.
Mhm.
And this is what I mean. Let's say somebody comes to me and says, I really need to get fit. And that's okay. So we'll clear whatever's getting in their way. And they're feeling great about themselves. They're being in the now. They can make some new choices. That's wonderful. And I said, so are you willing to make a commitment around this so that we can start building a better habit for you? And they said, yes. And I said, what commitment are you willing to make? And they said, and they'll say something grandiose, like, oh, I'm going to exercise for an hour a day. I'm sitting there going, no, you're not.
No.
And furthermore, because you're not, you're going to feel bad about yourself. I said, are you willing to commit to exercising for 4 minutes a day? And they look at me like in shock. And I said, because then every time you do it, anybody can do it for 4 minutes, So when you do those 4 minutes, then you're going to feel good about yourself. And then maybe you're going to continue because you like that feeling good about yourself. And then you may choose to build it up because it actually becomes an enjoyable process that you feel good about.
Yeah.
Underachievement is the way to go.
Well, and so often, like, I look at the fact, like, people often say, well, you can't trust anybody. I'm like, the reason that that's what people think is because they can't trust themselves, but it's because they make these grandiose commitments to themselves. And I'm like, you're lying. Just stop lying.
Yeah. Somebody see the comment, I can exercise 4 minutes. Yeah, even I can exercise 4 minutes a day. Isn't that great? Let's both feel good about ourselves. I'll feel good about you too, and you can feel good about me. And then we're building up this feeling good, this cloud of unknowing, So I think that's terrific.
Well, and I look at like, go ahead.
Oh, no, we're coming to the end of our time. I just want to let you know.
Oh, are we? Oh my goodness, I could talk to you all day long.
Thank you.
But I hope that people realize. Oh, I think my internet's lagging.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, so I hope people realize that they're able to, like, step one, trust yourself before you trust others. And then know that there is actual people that are there to help you achieve what you actually want, not what you think you should have, but actually what you're worthy of having and what you're designed to have. And I think lots of times people don't realize that exists, and it totally does.
And that's why I love looking clients in the eyes. It's one of the reasons I always work by Zoom. I don't like working by phone anymore. Is so that I can look them right in the eyes and say, you know what? I give you permission to be you. I see that you are a person who is whole and complete. Just need maybe a little polishing up here and there. And let's just see how we can make your life even better.
Yeah.
So, unless you have any last words, we are going to close this down.
Awesome. I thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast chatting with you for this hour.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And people, if you want to work with Brettany, I believe that her website was down there along the bottom, or you can get in touch with me on Facebook. Oh, here it is again. Yay! She's got such an unusual name. So, I mean, just look for her on Facebook. She's there. And until next week, my friends, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. It's just always such a pleasure. And look, we get to have fun. Woo! And we'll see you soon. Bye.